So hey everybody, and as always, welcome to the channel. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a few. My name is Rich, I'm the channel host, and 9 times out of 10 we're talking about drones, imaging with drones, 2D and 3D modeling, and also standard photography and 360 photography as well. So a little bit of extra, but mostly the focus here is drones. Now, just the other day, I did a new video on editing our drone images in 2022. So in that video, I covered Lightroom, Photoshop, and Affinity Photo because those are the applications that I use most for photo editing. So of course, I get the questions regularly here on my YouTube channel, on our Patreon channel, and even through our online classes over at teachable.com. I get the question regularly, hey, what about an open source imaging platform? Well, here on screen, here it is. This is GIMP, the new image manipulation program. Now, this has been around for a very long time. Before I was even using Photoshop back in the early 2000s, I was using GIMP. So this has been a long-term open source project for a basically free photo editor and design graphics developer. So it's been around, it's hung in a long time, and there are people who are big fans of it. And if you're looking for a completely free solution for editing your drone photos or any other types of drone photos, you might want to check GIMP out. Now, this isn't going to be a full tutorial on GIMP. We're just going to use one of the images that we used in our previous video here, and we'll put a link back to that video up above. But we're going to use one image that's a raw image and see what we can do with it. And before we get heavily into anything, I should let you know. So GIMP, being a photo editor, I downloaded it recently to do this testing and do this video. And I dragged a raw file into GIMP and it refused it. So it would not work with it because GIMP does not have a native raw editor. So in addition to downloading GIMP, open source and free, you'll also need to download an open source free raw photo editor as well. So there's a couple of those out there. One's called Darktable, but the one that we're going to use today, let's see, is called Raw Therapy. So without any further ado, I'm going to open the GIMP file here, and we're going to go ahead and minimize our browser. And now we're going to switch me on the screen. So switching me right over there. And so there we are. We're now in the GIMP editor, and we now have view set to full screen so that you can actually see the editor. I'm going to just drag this over a little bit more. And the overall interface, we're not going to spend much time on this at all. We're just doing a little bit of testing here. But over on the left-hand side, we do have some very familiar looking tools if you're familiar with Photoshop or Lightroom or other editing applications. So we've got our move tools and our selection tools, paintbrush tools, pencil tools, text tools. So this isn't just about photo editing. You can do a lot of graphic design work in GIMP as well. So that's what we have over on the left-hand side. Over on the right-hand side, the toolbar over here, we have some brushes, different brush palettes. If we were, brushing things in, we do have a lot of different brushes to work with. Also up in here, we do have patterns, fonts, document history, and a tool preset editor. Below that, we have our basic pane with layers. So if you're familiar with Photoshop at all, one of the most powerful tools in image editing and graphic design has to be layers, because you can do a lot of non-destructive editing there and still find your way back to your original image with no problem. Now, as I said, so one of the big issues that I ran into right away with GIMP was, hey, no raw photo editor. What do I do? Fortunately, GIMP notifies you and says, hey, you're going to need to download one of these other things. So Raw Therapy or Darktable, or there's one other one for it as well. Right now, we've gone with Raw Therapy. So we're going to do this as a very quick intro here. By the way, there are a lot of videos on GIMP. So if you need to learn more about how to utilize GIMP, you can just search around here on YouTube, and you're going to find a lot of stuff on GIMP. One of the things that kind of threw me as I was bringing myself back into this, I haven't used GIMP in quite some time. I used to use it back in the 2000s, but so I needed to get familiar. So I looked around a lot of the YouTube videos, beginner's guide to GIMP, all these types of things. And what I found was it wasn't really totally beginners. They jump right into selection tools, composite images, where we're taking one photo and blending it with another photo, and that did not feel like beginners to me. So this is super beginners. We're just opening up GIMP for the first time, and we want to deal with a photo. We did a shoot for a client. We need to deliver some images to them. We don't need to mess around with text tools and brush tools or anything. We want to improve the photo, and we want to make it presentable so that our clients are happy people. So over here on the right here, we have a .dng file from a recent shoot and one of the images that we used in our last video about editing in 2022. I'm just going to grab this DNG file. I'm going to drag it onto GIMP, and it's not doing anything. Really weird. It actually did do something in the background, and you probably missed it. So did I. Here we go. So it opened a second window for us. The second window that it opened is Raw Therapy. Raw Therapy is one of the open source raw photo editors out there. So it opened up Raw Therapy, and what we do now is we work with the image. When we're done working with the image, we close Raw Therapy, and it gets fed back into GIMP for us. So what do we have here? On the left-hand side, the panels change. It's not all those tools anymore. Now we're into this raw photo editor. So, and then we have a navigator here for the image itself. And we've got a couple tools up here. So we can do some cropping. We can do some eyedropper to select colors. We can toggle our color panels here. And then there's a little information as well. We want to get going on this fast, though. We want to start doing this edit because we've got a bunch of photos for our clients. So can we have a streamlined process for this? Yeah, we can. So I'm going to just zoom over here now. So we've got processing profiles. So you can create profiles. We can deal with our exposure, highlight reconstruction, exposure compensation, highlight compression. We've got a lot in here. This panel is bigger than you think it is. And while we're at this, I'm just going to drag this out to go over the GIMP window so that we're not confused here. And I'm just going to open this up a little bit more. But so over on the right-hand panel, we're going to do something very similar to what we did in our last video. It was a lot of moves with our highlights and our shadows. And as you can see in this image, the highlights are pretty washed out. It would be, nice to get a deeper, richer sky. The shadows are really, really shadowy here. So can we get some detail out of the front of this? This is not the best photo in the world. I'm not claiming it to be. We were out at the wrong time of day. We were with a realtor. We were rushing through multiple sites because he added some extra things that he brought up with us when we got out there. So it was quick and dirty, get some decent images and move on, and also do some video editing. So over here in this right-hand panel, we're in the basic editor here. And if I point at this, it's our exposure editor. And then we have detail editor, color, and advanced as well. Now, I'm not going to do anything with the exposure up top here. We've got our histogram over on the left-hand side that we can refer from. But this first block, I'm going to leave completely alone. And I'm going to leave that tone curve alone for now, too. What I want to get down to here is the shadows and highlights. So there's the shadows and highlights. By the way, see this little button right here, this tiny toggle? It really is that small. I'm working on a larger screen, and for the screen resolution, to keep everything from becoming super blurry, we have to have these set at this size. So I have just turned on the shadow and highlights. What I'm going to do here is under highlights, I'm going to drag this up. And as I drag this up, that did deepen and enrichen the sky a good bit. I can turn the shadows and highlights off to see the difference. So yeah, that's doing a nice job right there. The next item that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to shadows. And so this is super beginners, folks. We're skipping some things here. We didn't do anything with the highlights tonal width. If you're just starting out with this, I would suggest testing your way around. But shadows and highlights is a great place to start. And I'm going to move those shadows up even a little more. And as you can see, we are filling in a good bit here. I'm just going to zoom into this really quickly. And zooming into this, we can see that we did brighten this area. Let me turn shadows and highlights off. Look at that. All right, so that is looking good to me. And now let's just grab that hand tool. We'll move ourselves back over here, get ourselves situated, and we can zoom in a little more. So all we've done so far is a couple of shadow and highlights moves. that's done a really nice job for us. The next item below that is tone mapping. So a lot of people associate that with HDR. And we are going to turn tone mapping on. I'm going to zoom back out before I turn it on. So let's go ahead and hit that really quick. And that definitely popped things up a little bit. The strength might be a little too high. So I'm going to dial that back just a bit. But now we do have a really good view into that porch patio area. We can see details here. And one of the things that the realtor wanted was to be able to show off this north side. So this is the north facing side of the house. And the realtor was very interested in showcasing this outdoor cooking area and all of the comforts for living a lot of your life outdoors at this beautiful location. So we've done the tone mapping here. We could do the dynamic range compression as well. We're going to go ahead and bypass that one. But the other one that we can do, if we want to affect the sky a little more, is a graduated filter right here. So I'm going to zoom myself back out. I'm going to click on the graduated filter. And now I am just bringing this up here. And as you can see, so darker on the top, lighter on the bottom for that graduated filter. And we could actually, let's go overboard here. So that's at 0.6 right now. Let's push the strength up here. And maybe we're going a little too far with that. So we'll dial it back just a bit. But it definitely has richened up the sky for us. That is fantastic. From here, I'm going to move over to the detail panel really quickly. And I'm just going to apply the base sharpening that they've already included with this. And I'm not going to do much else in here. But there are a lot of tools in here. Like I said, this is not a full tutorial on GIMP. This is a quick edit because sometimes we do have rush jobs. We need to get content out to our clients quickly because, you know, they're trying to showcase a home, they're trying to showcase a build, or even a raw land site. But with time and practice in here, you too can actually get much better with GIMP. And like I said, it is free. All right, so the next panel we went into is the color panel. So we could deal with our white balance in here. We could use the camera's white balance, or we could use some of the presets with GIMP. I'm going to go ahead and stick with that camera preset. What I'm going to do down here is vibrance. I would like to turn vibrance on here. And now let's zoom out and let's zoom ourselves all the way out. So I have turned vibrance on and it says pastel tones. That's kind of interesting, pastel tones. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to slide those pastel tones up just a little bit. And we have definitely made an impact on the image now. Look at that. So definitely a lot more going on here. Let's click back over to here and let's make sure, all right, we're not moving anything else around. So there we go. I would say that this is a decent and passable image for our client. And let me just move around in here. This will sharpen up a little bit more. So for some reason in the raw editor, it looks a little soft, you know, not sharpened quite as well. Do not worry about that. We're okay. So we don't have to concern ourselves too much with that one. I'm just going back to the original here and let's zoom that out again and let's just move it down. So if I'm now satisfied with the image, remember we're in raw therapy right now. We're not even in GIMP, but in raw therapy, once I am done with this, I go over and I click the close button. When I click the close button, it's actually going to export these edits and it's going to bring the exported image into the application GIMP. So we're waiting on that for a moment. And then it asks us to convert to an RGB workspace. I'm going to say OK to this, and we're going to keep that. And there we go. By the way, so we had a little error panel pop up on us there. Remember, this is an open source platform. We're using an open source image editor, and we're using an open source raw image editor. Sometimes things can just get a little wonky. So you've got to keep that in mind, and keep in mind you are dealing with open source. So do not expect the perfectly polished application. You can still get your edits done here. So now we have brought this in to GIMP and we could do continued editing if we wanted to. You will notice down in the right-hand panel for my layers, I've got one layer, that's the DNG, and we could edit the layer. We could do a new layer from visible, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So we could do some additional things on this one. Our tools. So we've got brushes around here. We've got crop tools and all these types of things. What else do we have in the way of tools? Well, under colors, we could go into more shadows and highlights. We could hit the overall exposure. We could hit the saturation, do our levels, brightness, and contrast. So if we needed to do some additional editing beyond what we did with the basic raw editor, this is where we're going to have some of these tools. So we could also do our white balance if we wanted to. I'm just clicking that really quick. Whoa, that is over the top. So the opacity on that one right now is 100%. So we could in here drop the opacity to blend these two together a little more. And there we go. So we warmed it up a little bit. That was way over the top before we changed the opacity on this. And we could turn this completely off. But there we go. I'm turning that back on. That does have a touch of a warmer feel without being over the top. And this is kind of representative of the day that we had out there. So at this moment, I could go ahead and save this. Now, when we save this, this is going to be saved in a GIMP file format. So this is kind of interesting here. I would like to do a save as. And what we can do, I'm going to go to my desktop. And we're going to do, whoops. Just wanted to one. So that's an XCF file, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And once again, we're saving that to the desktop. And it's got a little watch symbol there. And I just want to minimize this really quick. And as you can see right here, GIMP edit 1.xcf. So we could reopen this in GIMP again, but most likely we're going to be delivering this to somebody online, and that's not a file format that everyone is used to. So we can also export this, and we can make this into a JPEG. So I would like to make this a JPEG. And this actually confused me initially because we don't have a drop down saying be a JPEG or anything else like that. I'm going to select my desktop and GIMP edit 1.ora. Nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to do a .jpeg here. And let's go ahead and export that JPEG. And now it brought up the JPEG window for us. So you actually have to type in the file format you want in. All right, go figure. So we're going to put this at 100% quality. I'm going to make sure that all of my EXIF data and other data is in here. We could even put a comment into this. And I'm going to go ahead and hit export here. So there we go. We can now close GIMP. So we've got this done, very quick edit. We could do a lot more with it, of course. But what I wanted to do was show you the final JPEG that came out of this. So I'm just waiting. All right. This is not looking terrible. It's not perfected either, so I could go back through and experience a little bit of a learning curve personally to get this dialed in a little more. I'm still more fond of the shots that I did with Affinity and with Photoshop. Let's just open the Lightroom version of this. Okay, big differences here. So, and that's my fault. So this is not an issue with the GIMP editor. This is an issue with Rich doing these quick edits on a video for you. So let's pull this one over again. So we can pretty quickly, though, go back in and warm some things up. So this one is much warmer over here on the right-hand side. I like the blue skies a little bit better. We did open up all those shadows. And on the left-hand side with GIMP, we did open up those shadows as well. So the big thing here is it's going to take a little bit of time for you to adjust to utilizing GIMP. Or, if you're brand new to photo editing, then you might have an easier learning curve because a lot of us have come up on Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom. We're very used to the labels on their tools. We're very used to how we can do color correction fast and easy. And we've mostly developed some workflows for ourselves to do things the way we want to. So in my case, jumping back into GIMP after well over a decade, I'm dating myself here, but for using it so long ago, I can see where it's going. The big part is you're going to need that external raw editor, and you do all the edits in that external raw editor, and then you bring it into GIMP for the final polishes, I would say. So there we have it. So in answer to the questions that I get asked about GIMP, there we go. It is an open source, so totally free. application where you can do photo editing and photo cleanup and also graphic design work as well. Um, and have fun doing it while you're at it. And totally free to you. So the big thing before we wrap up, so it is free to me, but at the moment, because I have a workflow that I'm very comfortable with, I can move through images very quickly after doing a shoot for a client, whether it's outdoors or indoors, 360 images, standard images, drone images. I've got a workflow that really works well for me. Now, jumping into GIMP, if I were to say I was interested in making this my photo editing platform of choice, I would have something of a learning curve without a doubt. You saw all the buttons and sliders in there. There's a lot more options that we find in that raw editor. So with that in mind, it's going to take you a little bit longer. It's going to take building, yourself up. You can create your own presets as well in there, but it's not going to be instant. I'm super satisfied with the edits of my photos. That's not going to be an instant thing, but with a little practice and watching a few more editing videos out there, I would say that this can work well for you. And I've seen some incredibly beautiful images rendered with GIMP. So there we have it, an open source platform for photo editing. So if you don't want to spend the $10 a month for Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, and you're more willing to spend your time on coming up to speed with an application like GIMP, so be it. You can do it without a doubt. All right, everyone. I hope this answers some of the questions about GIMP there, open source editing. And I hope you also understand why I lean more toward Photoshop, Lightroom, and Affinity Photo. They're much more familiar interfaces for me, so it's much easier to get going very quickly and move through large blocks of images really quickly as well. We'll see you again real soon on channel. And for those of you who don't know, we also do have a class over on Teachable. And so if you go to classes.azdrone.net, you will find our courses on 2D and 3D modeling with drones, autonomous flight apps, 3D modeling applications, and a few new classes on image editing, and those classes are going to be growing as well because this all feeds into building your drone business. By the way, we do have a bundled price now for our classes as well. So if you check out our full class bundle, you will find 13 classes with over 40 hours of instruction, taking you from after getting your Part 107 to delivering final content to your clients. So I hope you pop over to classes.azdrone.net and take a look at all the classes that we have available. And of course, for our YouTube subscribers, we do have generous discounts. I'll call them generous. Our 13 class bundle normally lists for $250. And right now, going into May of 2022, we've got an extreme markdown to only $100 for that whole class series. And so it's marked down to $100 from $250 with over 40 hours of instruction and some more. It's still growing. And as we add new classes to that particular class bundle, those classes get updated to our students as well with no extra charge. So you might want to check that out. All right, everyone, have a great start to your week. We'll see you again real soon.